Hello, hello, my gorgeous sister or brother, as the case may be. I know there's a few guys in this group. Don't want to leave anybody out. Certainly don't want to leave. And in addition to that, not that you have to identify with one group or the other, right? Oh my God, binary gender is so last millennia. And I know I'm saying that facetiously, but I'm serious. It's really true. This kind of idea of a separate and distinct box for female versus male is so a thing of the past. So I sit before you today in front of this gorgeous painting by my friend and artist sister, Janet Balboa. I was in a local shop and I saw it on the wall and I was like, what? Not only is there the sacred feminine represented, it's very much it's called, I love this, it's called, it's called something, which I don't remember, but it's on the back of the painting. But it really recalls to me this sense of not quite guarded. It's not Garden of Eden, but it's like recalling some of the elements, right? You have the serpent, which has always been this symbol of wisdom, right? We often see images of, Mary with her foot upon the serpent. We've often been told that this had to do with the snake in the Garden of Eden and, whatever, man's downfall due to women's weakness, blah, blah, blah. And, I'll respect if that is your narrative. And there is an older narrative that predates that one. Same image, right? Of a goddess with her foot atop a snake. A serpent has always been associated with wisdom. Hence, that's why the symbol for, medicine is like I forget what it's called, the Kadushi, that thing, with the two snakes wrapped around it and stuff. So, wow, thank you, Janet, for, I'll have to tag you if you're in the group, and if not, you'll need to come in and watch this video because not only was I so inspired when I saw this, ooh, I want to bring this window view into my office, into my space, it also is inspiring, this coffee with the goddess today. So in that vein, I wanted to lean into another fellow divine feminine guide, Megan Watterson, and her oracle deck, the Divine Feminine, my newest. I love playing with decks. So here's the thing, right? These are simply windows to our intuition, to our own guidance, right? This is really how I tap that. And it's also, for me, a way of connecting with ancient, I would say archetypes, but there's actually an older word for that. Archetype is a 20th century word, and many feminine archetypes are really not that great. They were devised by male psychologists that didn't have a real deep understanding of the feminine. And so, you'll have the archetype of the queen is meh. It has everything to do with her relationship with the king, and nothing to do with her beneficent, regal power, right? So I am on the lookout for an alternative to the word archetype. So if you happen to know that, feel free to pop it in the chat below. I'm probably looking for something pre-Jungian, right? Pre-patriarchy, if we can find it. So, anywho. So what is our message today? We are looking into the garden. We are consulting with the ancient serpent of wisdom. And what I love too, it's, you may or may not, you see how you see the boulder there behind it. It's hard to see unless you're really focused in. There's oh yeah, you can kind of see it. There's this line of stones. So here's the thing about our past relationship with the goddess. many temples and churches are built upon, you know how they have that amazing feeling when you walk into them of awe, right? Awe and reverence. And there's just, you can feel it, that there's a different state of consciousness that happens in these spaces. And very often it's because they're built upon points on the earth where maybe it's a confluence of ley lines. It's something where like the energy converges to really create and kind of propagate that feeling of like, woo, there's something magical happening here. Well, this is also where you'll find those stone arrangements, Stonehenge, and like not only are they these confluence, but they're like these amplifiers of the energy in those spots. The reason why I say that is because once upon a time, a relationship with the divine was really personal. You know, it might be a copse of trees or a place on your property where you just felt, you know, that elevation of the energy. And that's where you would place your roses for Divine Mother, right? That's where the rosary comes from, a garland of roses that you would place at her feet. And her feet, like there may be a statue there, there may not be, right? There may be a temple there or a fountain or something, or there may be nothing but a little mound or, you know, those wonderful caves that are like the shape of the feminine, right? The shape of our most sacred spot. And hint. So, ooh, this is so cool because I'm new to this deck. So our guide for this week is Marguerite Porret, the mystic of divine love. Love is divine, and I am nothing except love. Ooh, I love this so much. Ooh, I'm getting chills. Love is divine, and I am nothing except love. Love is the language of the universe. Love is the energy of the universe. It's the energy that we tap into when we co-create with universal flow, right? So let's learn a little bit more about Marguerite. And this is something that I love about Megan is she is a student of divinity. I mean, she herself pursued that course and of education. So she has this wonderful perspective through that, right? You know, it's like, that's not a perspective that I'm, you know, as much as I'm your friendly neighborhood dancer priestess, like I'm not going to go to divinity school, right, this lifetime. And so I love Megan's perspective because she brings that in and some of the figures that we may not be familiar with. So this is my first encounter with Marguerite Porret. And thank you, whoever is joining us, because, and whether you are here now and or are tuning into this later, this is for you. So once more, Marguerite Porret, the mystic of divine love. Love is divine, and I am nothing except love. It really helps to align, doesn't it? It's like when you realize, like, all right, I'm nothing but love. So anything that's not love, say like fear, is not me. So I can release it, right? All right, cool. Who she is. Marguerite Porret is the essence of divine love and the truth that we all are is love, that all we are is love. Marguerite was a French Béguine born in the mid-13th century. The Béguine movement was a spiritual revival among women in the late Middle Ages that emphasized an imitation of Christ's life. These Béguines, or holy women, lived together in semi-monastic communities. They were not nuns. They didn't take formal vows and could leave at any point, but they lived with shared spiritual intention. Oh, I love this so much. So Marguerite wrote a spiritual masterpiece called The Mirror of Simple Souls. It reveals the spiritual process she went through to be transformed by divine love. I am God, says love, for love is God and God is love, and this soul is God by the condition of love. It's kind of like this, I love this kind of like logical syllogism that as we are part of the universe, and the universe is love, therefore we are love, right? By 1306, the Bishop of Cambrai deemed her work heretical, of course, because it was written by a woman, and condemned it to be burned in Poret's presence. Even so, it continued to circulate widely throughout the Middle Ages, and in some ecclesiastical centers, it was embraced as an almost canonical piece of theology. Poret was ordered to stop circulating her book and to recant her ideas of God as love, but she refused. Wow. Marguerite was arrested as a relapsed heretic and a free spirit. Why were you arrested? Because I'm a free spirit, which included the belief that humans could achieve union with the divine. The Catholic Church conducted an unprecedented trial to decide her fate, and like Joan of Arc, much of her life is recorded because of the transcripts of her lengthy trial. I guess that stuff was good for something. She maintained her truth that the soul has no other will but God's, and that when the soul is united with God's love, this state of union causes the soul to transcend the contradictions of the world. Doesn't that just sound like meditation, right? And that when we commune with love, when we see union, wow. So she was, not surprisingly, burned at the stake in 1310. Oh yeah, this makes me want to cry, but so when your soul selects her card, there's nothing more powerful than remembering that we are love. And I would add to that there is nothing more powerful than remembering the women that walked this planet before we did, and who, through their courage, documented a different path to God or goddess, who saw things in a different way that they were killed for, right? So this is a lot of what's coming up for us now as we embrace our power, and really step into our power and use our voice, is reclaiming and reintegrating the wisdom and the knowledge of those that went before us, ancient women's knowledge, indigenous wisdom, native wisdom. All these pieces that have been relegated to the corner or denounced by whether it's the church or the colonial government of the time. My own ancestors were cut up into pieces and fed to the crocodiles because they were just considered too powerful women to be allowed to exist or even just have a normal burial, right? So sounds macabre, but it's not, because their wisdom, Marguerite's wisdom, the wisdom of my ancestors, the Babylon priestesses of the Philippines, some of whom, still exist, right, in little towns and enclaves there. But there is an unbroken chain, an unbroken communication from the past to the present, that for us to move into this future as a collective that honors all perspectives and that understands that our common language is love, then we need to integrate this past stuff in order to move into the future. So this is where my work is taking me, and I'm super excited to share that with you in the coming weeks, months, what have you. And I would love to hear from you, like, who are your heroines from the past, the people who inspire you, whether it's Marguerite Poret, Joan of Arc, Babylon priestess, your grandmother, my mother, right? It is time to honor all strands of wisdom and reactivate them. They're in our DNA. They're in, we had to back, right? She was burned at the stake because she published something saying that God is love and just refused to take it back. And it was in this atmosphere of terror, right, that we had to swallow our power, that we went underground. And so our great grandmothers have passed this knowledge on to us, not through written word very often, but in our blood, in our bones, in our sinews, to be reactivated, remembered, right? And so as we do that, that's how we can truly show up as all of who we are, without shame and without fear, as powerful ambassadors of unconditional love. And like midwife this transformation that the world is going through, right? So especially now in this new moon energy, really like take this in and let me know what comes up for you. As always, from my heart to yours, I love you. Take what you need and pass it on. Mwah, mwah.